Shout out to Ring RQ, Julius, you legend. We're going to do a joint interview, yeah? Yeah, we'll do a joint interview, Julius. Thanks for the support. You're a legend. From your girls, Raven and Ellie.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. On the heels of her first professional loss to Alicia Baumgartner in their unification match, Michaela Mayer posted this to her social media, and it reads, "Bounce back, game strong. Thanks to my fans for all the love and support. I've read all of your messages, and I am beyond grateful for you guys." In my previous videos, we've talked about one or some of the options on the table for Michaela Mayer. She can move up in weight. I vaguely recall her saying, ahead of what was the Baumgartner fight, that this would be her last year campaigning as a super featherweight. If she beat Alicia, she'd try to get Choi in the ring, and if Choi drags her feet, she's not going to wait around. She's going to move up.
I remember she said that.
Didn't work out that way. She lost her alphabet titles to Alicia, and now she's on the bounce. She's on the rebound. She obviously wants a second fight. She obviously wants another crack at Alicia. As I've said in previous videos, I don't think she's going to get it. Not in the immediate future. Alicia's focus is becoming the division's undisputed champion.
That goal is within sight.
We talked about that as well. We've talked about that in my previous videos. Michaela added, if Baum doesn't want to make the payday of her life and give the fans a rematch or trilogy, then that's her loss. However, I'm still going for big fights like I promised. That's my legacy. Baumgartner, Taylor, Serrano, Persoon. Who do you guys want to see me fight next? Now, we've talked about
A rematch with Alicia can happen, just not in the immediate future, and certainly not on Michaela Mayer's time.
Alicia's not on Michaela's time. She's not on Michaela's dime. Alicia has bigger fish to fry. Michaela also mentioned Katie Taylor, but I've said it many times before.
Unless Michaela Mayer plans on crossing over to the DAZN Matchroom side of things, that fight don't happen.
And I don't think she plans on crossing over to the Matchroom and DAZN side of things. I really don't. She mentioned Amanda Serrano, who's in the thick of a campaign to become the featherweight division's undisputed champion. Amanda Serrano is gunning for an Erica Cruz fight to complete the circuit and complete the unification process to become her division's undisputed champion. Because I get the sense that Michaela is on the verge of leaving the division, and because I don't really think she can make featherweight.
Remember, that's where Amanda campaigns as a champion, 126 pounds. Michaela's up there at 130.
Now, I don't think Michaela Mayer can boil down to 126 pounds, and I don't think Amanda Serrano's about to move up to 130 to fight Michaela for no belt. No belt at all.
I'm pretty sure Amanda Serrano would want a lot of money to move up in weight and fight somebody like Michaela Mayer.
It's not realistic. Not right now. The most realistic fight, the most realistic name, the aforementioned names that Michaela Mayer mentioned, is Delphine Persoon. Former WBC lightweight champion Delphine Persoon that now campaigns as a super featherweight and is coming very close to becoming...
All she's got to do is get past Ikram Karwat on the undercard of Floyd Mayweather's exhibition match with Deji.
I believe that's set to go down next month. All Delphine Persoon has to do is beat Ikram Karwat, and I think she can. I think she will. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Delphine Persoon stop Ikram Karwat, and that's all she's got to do to hold her position and stay in the queue.
Stay in the queue to become the WBC's official mandatory challenger, to challenge Alicia Baumgartner for all those belts.
If Michaela Mayer can still keep making super featherweight, if she can keep boiling down to 130 pounds, that's one fight that could see that rematch between her and Alicia happening sooner rather than later. If she can get Delphine Persoon in the ring, beat her, and take her WBC silver title.
Not sure when we can expect to see Michaela Mayer back in action, but that is a fight.
It's a realistic fight. It can happen. I don't think Delphine is going to drive as hard a bargain as Amanda Serrano or Alicia Baumgartner for that matter. And getting Katie in the ring, you better take a number.
Yeah, so maybe Michaela can get her in the ring, but if she does, can she actually beat her?
Well, that's easier said than done.
Isn't everything?
I think by now most observers have come to familiarize themselves with Delphine Persoon's signature, her calling card, volume punching, straight punches from the outside coming in, crowding and thus overwhelming the opponent.
Getting one to give one whilst overwhelming the opponent.
Kind of volume and that kind of aggression can cause the most educated boxer to start to crumble under the pressure, come apart at the seams.
I don't think Michaela Mayer can stop Delphine Persoon.
Just being honest, Michaela's a good fighter, very good boxer, but she's no power puncher. And Delphine Persoon has shared the ring with some Very formidable fighters over the years. They couldn't stop her. I don't think Michaela can stop her. Christina Lenardatu didn't. Christina Lenardatu, who gave Alicia Baumgartner her first professional loss. Erica Farias,
One of the most formidable fighters Argentina's ever produced.
Christina Lenardatu, Erica Farias, they were given their first professional losses by Delphine Persoon. And we know what happened in the Katie Taylor fight. The arduous task it was for Katie to secure the W against Delphine Persoon. Does Michaela Mayer?
Does she have what it takes to beat her?
Michaela Mayer, who shares a common opponent with Delphine in Maiva Hamadouche, yet another fighter that Delphine dispensed their first professional loss to. They got similarities, Maiva and Delphine, with one fundamental difference. Maiva's best punches are mid-range to inside. Maiva's best punches are her bent arm punches, whereas Delphine Persoon punches, her best punches are her straight punches from the outside coming in.
Because of that, I actually think there's a bit more on them.
Michaela Mayer was able to weather the storm and secure the W against Maiva Hamadouche. Can she do that here today against an aging Delphine Persoon? It's not outside the realm of possibility, but it is a slightly different assignment.
Listen, the sooner she gets her in the ring and the sooner she beats her, the sooner she can have that rematch she wants with Alicia Baumgartner.
Because she will then, in effect, become Alicia's mandatory challenger, at which point she can force Alicia to fight by way of the mandatory process. That's something you want to look out for next year.
It can happen.
If Michaela stays at 130 pounds and makes Delphine an offer she can't refuse, assuming Delphine beats Ikram Krawat, and I think she can, I think she will, that's something that we might see in 2023. In men's welterweight news, Jaron Boots Ennis' team have sent an official petition to the IBF requesting that they order Errol Spence to defend against him as the IBF's mandatory challenger next because the Terence Crawford fight isn't happening. His father, trainer Derek Bozy Ennis, has revealed. And this is what I've been telling you guys for weeks. This is what I've been telling you guys about for months. That Errol Spence Jr. better make sure, he better damn
well make sure that he gets Terence Crawford in the ring, because if he don't...
See, here's what you need to understand. Errol Spence Jr. is a unified champion, and for every one of those alphabet titles he's in possession of, there's a mandatory challenger in the queue. By way of the WBA, you've got a Montestanionis, and we talked about a potential fight between them, but by way of the IBF, you've got Jaron Boots Ennis. And Errol Spence Jr. hasn't satisfied a mandatory for the IBF in 4 years. Carlos Ocampo fight.
The IBF that doesn't normally fuss about when it comes to their mandatory challengers. When one gets ordered, they mean business. Errol Spence Jr. seems to have been given amnesty all these years. The fact that he hasn't satisfied a mandatory for these people in that amount of time, it's uncharacteristic of the IBF. But now that the Terence Crawford fight, Errol Spence Jr.'s fans have been having a lot of fun playing the blame game. But Errol Spence Jr. himself, he's running out of time. And that's what I've been telling you guys here on the channel.
I told you, he better make sure he gets Terence Crawford in the ring, because if he don't, he's got a lot of targets on his back.
One that Jaron Ennis is aiming for, the red belt. Jaron Ennis, who sports a professional record of 29 wins, no losses, no draws, 27 knockouts. One of the brightest young up-and-comers in the welterweight division today, and a high-risk, low-reward kind of guy for Errol Spence Jr. I told you he ain't got time to fuck around with Crawford. I told you he better make sure he gets him in the ring, because if he don't, hey, Montestanionis ain't the only one waiting for him. Jaron Ennis is there too by way of the IBF, and you haven't satisfied a mandatory challenger for the IBF since Carlos Ocampo.
Errol's running out of options, and he's on borrowed time. Errol Spence Jr. can either convince the IBF to hold off on ordering this fight so he can keep negotiating with Terence Crawford, or
under pressure to fight Jaron Boots Ennis and under pressure to fight a Montestanionis, he can drop those belts and flee the division.
move up to 154 pounds. He can abandon his undisputed campaign. Not that it was ever much of a campaign to begin with. There's no reason it should have taken this long. It didn't take Alexander Usyk that long to unify his division, or Josh Taylor,
Or Canelo Alvarez, or Terence Crawford for that matter. These are all undisputed champions.
These are all guys that got the job done. Now, Errol Spence Jr. won his first alphabet title all the way back there in 2017. You're telling me from 2017 till now you haven't gotten the job done? What What have you been doing?
Getting drunk behind the wheel and flipping Ferraris. That's what he's been doing.
Taking time off as a result, and whatever residual injuries he incurred from that horrific car accident, the detached retina that benched him all of last year.
Yeah, he sat out all of last year. He had to take time off because of that as well.
All the while, Errol Spence Jr.'s supporters and his fans have been happy to watch him waste everyone's time. Waste Terrence's time and the welterweight division's time as a whole, because he's the one with more than one alphabet title. He's the unified champion.
They've been happy to egg him on. Happy to watch him waste everybody's fucking time.
If you didn't already think that the Terrence Crawford undisputed welterweight title fight was in jeopardy before, you better think that now. You better wake up.
You better.
Where's he gonna go, huh?
What's he gonna do?
Drop the belts in front of everybody? Abandon his undisputed campaign so he can move up and hide out at 154 pounds?
There are no high-profile fights up there for him.
I'm telling you that Errol's fans have been happy to watch the entire situation devolve into another rousing round of the blame game. And time as it were, it's almost up.
You had 4 years to make it happen. 4 years to get it done. And you didn't. You wanted to put distance between yourself and Terrence Crawford so you could get drunk behind the wheel and flip Ferraris.
What, am I supposed to feel sorry for you?
All these people are so fucking angry at Terrence Crawford.
And for what?
What?
Errol Spence Jr. is supposed to be the A-side fighter. Terrence Crawford is the network and promotional free agent. The onus to do the fight is on Errol. The onus to get the deal done is on Errol, the PBC, and Showtime.
You hear reports they don't even got a guarantee for this guy. You hear reports that he's willing to accept the lesser split at no money down.
You fucking bozos are still telling yourself it's Terrence Crawford's fault.
You can believe whatever you like for the time being, but that bubble is about to burst.
My honest opinion? The people at the PBC were never committed to this fight, and the signs were all there the last 4 years. But if you needed any further indication that they weren't committed to this fight, all you have to do is go back to Tim Smith's quotes from earlier this year. Tim Smith, the VP of Communications, who started off this year by saying that he didn't think people would buy the Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. fight. I mean, what more indication do you need?
They were not committed to doing this fight. They didn't think it would sell.
And if they didn't think the fight would sell, then why would they want to do it?
They wouldn't.
What they would do is kick off another rousing round of the blame game for year 4 in this saga, in order to save face with the boxing community at large, because they don't want to take the heat for this.
They don't want to get blamed for it.
It's never their fault. It's always someone else's fault. It's Terrence's fault. Somehow, some way, the network and promotional free agent. It's his fault the fight ain't done. And the Ferrari that sidelined Errol Spence Jr. for over a year, I suppose the Ferrari drove itself and flipped itself.
It's always someone else's fault.
It's not Errol Spence's fault, not Al Heyman's, it's not Stefan Espinoza, it's everybody else. It's always.
Tell yourself that while you can, because time is almost up.
The next wave of welterweights is already here, and you can't hold back that wave forever. Errol Spence Jr.'s only out to circumvent all these mandatories he has in the queue is to assure the alphabet organizations that they'll pick up where they left off with Terrence, that it is their intention to do the undisputed welterweight title fight, and that might alleviate the burden of having to satisfy these mandatories a little while longer.
He could do that, or he can vacate.
Or he can actually fight some of these guys and run the risk of losing his titles and his unbeaten record. But a fight with Jaron Butsenis, or a fight with Amon Stanionis, it ain't got the profile of a Crawford fight. Now, a Keith Thurman fight, that has more of a profile than an Ennis fight or a Stanionis fight, but I'm not sure that Errol is at liberty to fight Keith Thurman as a voluntary, or even a mandatory for that matter, because Errol Spence Jr. hasn't satisfied a mandatory for the IBF in some years, and by way of the WBA, the agreement that they reached.
Remember, Stanionis was supposed to fight Ugas. That was Ugas' mandatory challenger.
And the agreement that they reached was they would hold off on ordering Stanionis versus Ugas so long as the winner of Ugas versus Spence fought him afterwards.
Spence hasn't fought him.
He hasn't fought him. And Al Heyman failed to make the Crawford fight.
They weren't committed to doing the fight. I told you they weren't. But if you're not committed to that fight,
you're going to have to fight one of these guys. You're either going to have to fight one of these guys or come up out of those belts and stop causing this division to stagnate. Because if the welterweight division, what is otherwise one of the glamour weights in the sport of boxing, If it's stagnated over the years, it's because Errol Spence was in possession of all those alphabet titles.
Nobody gets to fight for them unless he makes a move. You can't put this on Terrence. Terrence only has one belt.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Al Heyman and the PBC have been negotiating in bad faith with Terrence Crawford. They were never committed to doing that fight.
They didn't want it 4 years ago. They don't want it now.
4 years ago, you might have been able to get away with it. Schedule some alternatives and some substitutes in place of a Crawford fight, but now you're out of time.
Now this is about the only marquee fight you can schedule for Errol Spence Jr., because I gotta tell you, there ain't very many, if any, high-profile fights for him up there at 154 pounds. There really aren't. And the risks to Errol...
They're greater up there. Greater risks for lesser rewards.
Maybe they just ain't got it in the budget to get this fight over the line this year, and they want to push it back to next year because next year the new annual budget will roll in and then they can afford to bankroll this thing. Maybe they can.
That's optimistic.
Because one problem that the PBC may be facing is a scarcity of fight dates in tandem with a scarcity of finances, a scarcity of funds. Keith Thurman only fought once this year, so did Jermel Charlo.
Maybe they couldn't get those guys out there more than once this year because they ain't got the money for it.
Denny Garcia has only fought once this year. It doesn't look like he's going to be getting back out there again before this year is out. So perhaps a part of the reason that the PBC hasn't been pushing as hard as they should to make the Crawford fight happen is because they ain't got the money to do it.
They might not. Reportedly, Terrence Crawford wasn't guaranteed any money up front for the Spence fight. No guarantee. No guarantee for an undisputed title fight that's taken 4 years to put together.
We're in October. They've likely blown through what remains of their annual budget. They don't seem to have very many fights scheduled for what remains of this year.
Whatever they have left in their budget, if they even have anything left at all, likely wouldn't be enough to get this fight over the line.
Yeah, you can probably afford to pay a Fundora or a Fernando Martinez to get out there. You can probably afford guys like that, but you ain't got to pay those guys the way you've got to pay Errol and the way Terrence Crawford wants to be paid. Those are probably the only kind of fights they can afford to finance at this point in the year and under these circumstances. I've long maintained that Showtime's boxing budget, it is shrinking.
I mean, look at the kind of ratings that a PBC show brings in these days.
It can't be that big a part of Showtime's bottom line. Showtime as a network.
When Tim Smith detailed why they hadn't made Terrence Crawford an offer yet earlier this year, in so many words what he said was economics.
That Terrence hadn't been built into a pay-per-view star, and he himself, he wasn't confident that the pay-per-view would sell, that people would buy it. He was convinced that people would steal it.
And you still got people running around convinced that the PBC was committed to making this fight. They're committed to making a fight they think won't make them any money.
You fast forward, and whatever offer they made to Terrence didn't seem to include a cash guarantee. The kind of cash guarantee normally associated with a big fight.
Yeah, they probably didn't want to give him a guarantee because they didn't want to risk anything financially.
Here we are. The PBC may not have been committed to getting this fight over the line, but they might need to because Errol Spence Jr.'s back is against the wall. He has a proliferation of mandatory challengers waiting for him, the kind of mandatory challengers that could derail him. And it's either fight or flight. He can either fight Terrence Crawford, fight one of these guys, or vacate and leave the division.
Those are his options.